Did you know that famed Renaissance architect Filippo Brunelleschi faked an illness to try and out his rival as a fraud? Hello, and welcome to Spilling the Tea on Art History. Come on a journey with me through some of the crazier rumors, intrigue, and scandals that can be found throughout the art world. We will be looking at famous works of art and architecture, but as always, our focus is going to be more on the artist stories and not on the works themselves. If you want more information on any of the major works that I'll be mentioning today, I've included some links to some wonderful channels that do a great job into going into those details in the description below. Now, back to today's tea, where we're going to look at how Filippo Brunelleschi's loss of a competition to his rival, Lorenzo Ghiberti, won Florence's magnificent dome and the world regained some perspective. Our story begins in Florence. The year is 1401, and the very powerful Arte di Calimala, or Cloth Merchants Guild, has just invited 7 sculptors to compete for a commission to create the north doors of the Florence baptistry. A baptistry is a space within a church or cathedral complex that houses the baptismal font, where the sacred rite of baptism is performed. Many older churches and cathedrals have separate dedicated buildings for this purpose, including the one in Florence. For the baptistry competition, the artists were requested to submit a bronze relief sculpture centered in a barbed quatrefoil of the biblical story of the sacrifice of Isaac. Of the 7 submitted pieces, 2 stood out, created by soon-to-be rivals Lorenzo Ghiberti, who trained as a goldsmith, painter, and sculptor, and Filippo Brunelleschi, who had also trained as a goldsmith and sculptor specializing in cast bronze. Here are the 2 reliefs, created by Ghiberti and Brunelleschi, and I'll be honest, I'm glad I wasn't judging this. In the end, Ghiberti won the competition and was given the commission for the baptistry doors. And if you go by what he says, it was a unanimous decision. However, Brunelleschi's biographer, Antonio Manetti, states that the judges were undecided and wanted to award the commission to both artists, which didn't thrill Brunelleschi. Foreshadowing Brunelleschi's reluctance to work with Ghiberti, Manetti says this: "Having thus resolved to bow out of the contest, Filippo seemed to say, I was not apparently good enough for them to entrust me with the whole project. I shall go then to a place where I can observe and learn from good sculpture." So Brunelleschi decides to get out of Florence and take a tour of Rome to study the ruins there with his friend Donato di Niccolò de Berna, better known today as Donatello. Oh, for heaven's sake. Sorry about that. It was during this time that an idea started forming in Brunelleschi's head, one that turned his attention away from sculpture and focused it more on how Roman architects constructed their buildings, especially domes. The idea that was tickling the back of his mind, the one that he does not yet share with Donatello, what if he, Filippo Brunelleschi, could raise the dome on the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore? You may be wondering, what is the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore? Well, it's only one of the most important buildings in Florence. Started in 1294 by architect Arnolfo da Cambio, this Gothic cathedral took almost 140 years to build and still sat incomplete in the early 1400s because nobody could figure out how to raise the massive dome needed to cover the gaping hole in the cathedral roof without destroying the local lumber trade, since it was going to take a ridiculous amount of timber for the needed wooden support frame. Brunelleschi spent about 2 years in Rome, documenting everything he had learned about ancient Roman architecture before returning to Florence to put into practice what he had discovered during his travels. One of the important things that Brunelleschi discovered, or more accurately, rediscovered from studying the ruins of ancient Rome, was a little thing called linear perspective. It's what allowed painters to go from this to this and it pretty much changed the art world overnight. But more importantly, it allowed Brunelleschi to create architectural structures like these. Without linear perspective, Brunelleschi's dome could not have happened. It is now 1418, and the Arte della Lana, or Wool Merchants Guild, working with the Opera di Santa Maria del Fiore, which was the institution set up in 1296 to oversee the cathedral's construction, sent out a public invitation calling for the creation of models showing how the dome was to be constructed. And if our old friend Giorgio Vasari, you remember him, the godfather of art history? Well, if he is to be believed, the awarding of the commission came down to an egg. So, let's look in on the drama. The gathered artisan masters are showing off their models to the council of judges, but Brunelleschi's model is noticeably absent. Instead, Brunelleschi tries to verbally explain his plans to the judges. He says building a double-vaulted dome would create a self-supporting structure, eliminating the need for a costly wooden frame. But the council can't see it and voice concerns about how heavy a double-vaulted dome would be, as well as the safety of working without a frame. Brunelleschi did have a model, but he was leery to produce it, his fears being 1, that the other masters would borrow ideas from the design, or 2, that the council judges would choose his design, but place another architect in charge of the construction, and he had worked too hard on this problem to allow that to happen. So Brunelleschi came up with an interesting solution. Here's Vasari's take on the situation. They would have liked Filippo to speak his mind in detail, and to show his model, as they had shown theirs. But this he refused to do, proposing instead to those masters, both the foreign and the native, that whosoever could make an egg stand upright on a flat piece of marble should build the cupola, since thus each man's intellect would be discerned. Taking an egg, therefore, all those masters sought to make it stand upright, but not one could find the way. Whereupon Filippo, being told to make it stand, took it graciously, and giving one end of it a blow on the flat piece of marble, made it stand upright. The craftsmen protested that they could have done the same, but Filippo answered laughingly that they also could have raised the cupola if they had seen the model or the design. And so it was resolved that he should be commissioned to carry out this work, and he was told that he must give fuller information about it to the consuls and to the wardens of work. Even though Brunelleschi won the commission, the city leaders still didn't quite trust him, so much to Brunelleschi's dismay, they added Lorenzo Ghiberti on as co-architect, and a few of Brunelleschi's friends, including Donatello, had to step in and keep Brunelleschi from backing out of the project completely, as well as keep him from ruining all of his prior work, as he allegedly threatened to destroy the model and burn his notes. Work on the dome started in 1420, and by 1426, Brunelleschi was seriously getting annoyed that Ghiberti was being given equal pay, as well as equal credit on the project, but wasn't putting in equal work. So, Brunelleschi came up with a plan that he hoped would get Ghiberti booted off the project. Basically, he starts calling in sick to work, complaining of colic, and this causes work on the dome to grind to a complete stop. The master builders are hitting up Ghiberti for directions in a panic because they only get paid if they're actually building something. But since Brunelleschi hasn't shared his model or the methods he's using, all Ghiberti can do is say they have to wait for Brunelleschi to get back. After 2 days, the master builders head over to Brunelleschi's house, begging him to give them directions on the next section of the dome because they want to get paid. But Brunelleschi brushes them off, stating that you have Lorenzo, let him do something. This goes on for a few more days, and the workers are all starting to get annoyed, with some of them muttering against Ghiberti, saying, he's good enough for drawing the salary, but as for directing the work, not a bit of it. Wind of the drama makes its way to the wardens of work, and they in turn start to panic, believing that Brunelleschi is faking being ill because he doesn't know how to complete the dome after all. So the wardens head over to confront him. This is how Vasari says that meeting went down. The wardens of work, seeing themselves disgraced by this state of things, determined to go and find Filippo. And after arriving and sympathizing with him first about his illness, they told him in how great confusion the building stood and what troubles his illness had brought upon them. Whereupon Filippo, speaking with great heat, both under the cloak of illness and from the love of the work, replied, "Is not that Lorenzo there? Can he do nothing?" Then the wardens answered, "He will do naught without thee." And Filippo retorted, "But I could do well without him." This retort, so acute and double-edged, was enough for them, and they went on their way, convinced that Filippo was ill from nothing but the desire to work alone. They sent his friends therefore to get him out of bed, with the intention of removing Lorenzo from the work. Ghiberti, however, was still highly favored with the city leaders, and was kept on the project, much to Brunelleschi's chagrin. So he tried again, this time stating that since both were getting equal pay, they should do equal work. So the work was split, with Brunelleschi in charge of building and creating the scaffoldings, and Ghiberti heading up the creation and installation of the masonry chains. Unsurprisingly, the chains that Ghiberti was thus assigned to design and install didn't bind the masonry correctly, and Brunelleschi had to come in and correct the problem. This finally resulted in Brunelleschi being named sole overseer and superintendent, and no work was to be completed without his express command. In the end, Brunelleschi's design worked brilliantly, and in 1436 it was completed except for the lantern that sits atop the dome. It's estimated that over 4 million bricks were used. It weighs around 37,000 metric tons. It's 45.5 meters high with an outside diameter of 55 meters. Combining the dome with the main building as well as the lantern, the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore towers over Florence at a height of 114.5 meters. As of today, it's still the 4th largest domed cathedral in the world, which is saying something. Unfortunately, Brunelleschi died in 1446, before the dome was capped with the lantern he had designed a few years earlier, so he never got to see the finished building, which was completed in 1471. However, he did leave his architectural mark on Florence, from the Hospital of the Innocents to the Basilica of San Lorenzo, both commissioned by the powerful Medici family. It's safe to say that there are a lot of buildings in Florence that Brunelleschi had a hand in building. But his crown jewel will always be the dome of the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, where, 7 years after it was completed, somebody was murdered under it. But I guess that's tea for another day. I hope you enjoyed spilling the tea on art history with me. If you want more art history tea, I'll be uploading new content every other Wednesday, so please hit those like and subscribe buttons, as well as the bell, for those update notifications, as well as helping me grow the channel. Thanks for your support, and I look forward to spilling the tea on art history with you again soon.